musicians, panel speakers, and visual artists from local Portland youth. This is day 2, and I'm really excited to kick it off today with who is Cooper Black, aka charlietownes. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Fantastic. Let's see. Charlie, would you like to introduce yourself, or would you rather do that later and jump right into the music?
Now, yeah, I'm charlietownes. My pronouns are he, him. I started playing guitar in freshman year in the guitar class, but I didn't take it sophomore year, and I learned more outside of class than I did in class. And then I wrote a few songs, but wasn't really that serious about it. Didn't really do that much about it. And then I was getting over a breakup, and I wanted to start a band because I was writing this song, like these songs about my breakup, but I didn't. But because of COVID, I didn't have like any way to make a band. I couldn't like meet up with people, so I just decided to do it on my own. And I just have been recording it on like GarageBand on my phone or voice memos, and just posting it to SoundCloud. And like I make like all the covers on, like I design all the covers. And yeah, I guess I'm just like an artist. I'm like working on a short film, so yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. That sounds awesome. All right, let's jump into the music. I'm super excited. We'll probably wrap it up around 3:15, and then we'll do some interview questions. That sound good?
Yeah. Okay, so this one's called I Died. So here we go. You left me in the smoke, in the middle of everything. Felt like I could choke on anything. And every time you spoke, I heard the sound of spring. As soon as I woke, I had grown a pair of wings. We just met. Why do you come off as such a threat? Why be so upset? We're all just trying to forget about death. You said, are you okay? I said, I'm fine. No, I'm not. I loved you for a long time. I realized it only takes 7 months and 3 weeks to die. I thought I had something better than I would ever have. But you are what I thought you'd be. You're not even half. I said it takes 7 months and 3 weeks to die. The answer's in the light. Don't ask me why. Questions are good, but questions bring tears. Be ready. You might hear some things you don't want to hear. It felt like I died. It felt like I died under that bridge in the field. It showed me that dying was real. It put weight on my shoulders. It took over everything I could feel. I had a plan, but you had seen it through. I had died, but I had grew. You buried my old body in that field that was worn by me and you. Now I've been reborn, I know it's true. I said I love you, said we can't say that now. We must move on, run away and lay around. Find another one to make that sound. That buried me so deep in the ground. Put me to rest. Came a little bit alive. Every time I cried, it was you or death. But it already felt like I died. Come back to the nest where you used to be. Yep, that's the first one. Okay, so my second song is called Devil's Dirty Tricks. And I wrote the song this week, so it's pretty relevant. Okay. There's a beautiful mystery about you that I've always wanted to get to know. You're telling me now that the stuff that I don't know. And when I'm getting tired, I think of the places that I wanna go. You think that I can get hurt? I slept with her shirt and saying, come back to me. I wanna be who I am, not who I have to be. What else is being shielded from me? Did I make a mistake? Which direction do I go to if all the street signs are fake? These are the devil's dirty tricks, caught up in the mix. The devil's dirty tricks. If I'm an addict, you're my fix. Power structures, hierarchies. Fuck the king and the monarchy. Gonna tear the whole thing down. Virtual hallways with virtual clowns. Maybe I'll collect enough money, drive across country, Big Apple NYC, defying gravity. I can hear the trees and touch the galaxy. Just tell me what you did, so I don't have to wait around like a little kid. Tell me what you wanna do, I'm impatient. I can't control the way you feel about each other. Don't wanna get in the way, but I can't seem to forget that you make me feel the same way. The author of my life must have messed it up. Don't know how it's gonna end. Knew you would find love again. Just not one of my best friends. But I can't control the way you feel about each other. Don't wanna get in the way. Good and bad and awful and sad is how I'm feeling today. Wanna ask God what I did to deserve this, but I don't know where he is. I can drive this car into that's it.
Rad. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, now just for a couple questions about you. How would you describe your identity and background? Like, for instance, what's your story been with music?
Yeah, I guess like that's pretty much what I said in like the like before was just like, yeah, I never really played guitar. Like I've always sort of been around guitars and singing and always listened to music, but never really tried to do it, and I never really thought that I could like even sing. And then did a guitar class in freshman year, didn't like it, and then just started learning songs of like my favorite people like Elliott Smith, and then like just and then I guess when I needed the music, when I needed to write music, it kind of just like came out of me, and it wasn't really like I didn't really like sit down and like I'm gonna write a song. It was just like I kind of had to, and yeah, it's basically just become sort of like a therapy for me, I guess. And yeah, I guess that's my background with music.
Yeah, I feel that. That's awesome, and I think really relatable for a lot of people. Um, what would you say intersectional youth power means to you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this because I was watching the other live streams, and I think it's just things like this. Like we're in the middle of a pandemic, and we can't come together from all parts of the city and the world to like play music with each other. But I think that intersectional power is finding ways to do it like this, and also doing it for a good cause, and like with music about like I'm playing music about like a girl, but there's also deeper things in it, and like there's other people on this platform that are speaking about racial justice issues, and so it's just it's this pretty much just coming together.
Yeah, rad. Speaking of good causes, what are some issues or projects or programs that are important to you or that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones, like in sophomore year, I like was privileged to like take a class that was I was the only history class that had the critical race teacher as the history teacher. So I learned a lot about like systemic racism and like institutionalized racism. And I think one of the biggest things for me regarding racism issues is like institutionalized racism and like the things, the institutions where Black people and people of color are still being disenfranchised. And like yeah, I mean like even in that song that I just sang, like um obviously I said it was like it's about a girl, but it's also like about like power structures and like just like tearing all the power structures down and just being like one people. So I guess that's what's important to me, I guess.
Cool. And then last but not least, I heard you say you're working on a short film, and this whole segment has been awesome. Your music is awesome. Is there any place like in the wider world or on social media where we can find you or your music?
Yeah, so the music on SoundCloud is just two super black like space in between like capitals. And the Instagram is the same, just so that it's black. And then I like main Instagram where like I have a main Instagram where I post like these little edit things that I make. I think it's 100char_, and then my YouTube is charlietownes and a little short. And I have like all the little edit things that I make there, and probably will be posting the short film there. So, yeah.
Cool beans, cool beans. All right. I think, yeah, we're gonna wrap things up. Once again, this has been Who is Cooper Black, or Who's Cooper Black? And coming next up, we have a panel that I'm going to be facilitating called Art is Activism, or Making Art in the Revolution. So tune in 10. And thank you all so much. And thank you.
Like, I haven't ever done a live show, and like, it's pretty weird that my first like live show is on like, Zoom. But I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. And thank you to Santina who reached out and DM'd me after the show.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you. See ya.
Cool beans. All right. We're starting a bit late because of some technical difficulties, but it's all good. It's going to be great. Hi, I'm Blaine. I'm going to be your host for this panel, Art is Activism. This is Youth Power PDX's Speak Up, Sing Out fall series. And we're featuring a lot of other amazing artists and performers that you can check out later in the week. And there is recordings of past performances on our YouTube as well, which is Youth Power PDX. All right. All right. Here today we have two really awesome young artists, Rowyn and Kendell. Okie dokie. If y'all don't mind, if we jump right in, what is your name, your pronouns, and what are some local projects or initiatives that you're passionate about?
I can go. My name's Rowyn. I use they, them pronouns. Let's see. I would say I'm passionate about I wouldn't say it's Portland based, but there's this project called Creative Healing for Youth in Pain that's based in California that uses the arts to cater to kids with chronic pain. And because I have chronic pain, I've found that to be like really helpful. And just also using art and music and other like creative forms of expression to process and like figure out what makes you enjoy things on a daily basis. But I would say specifically in Portland, I also just enjoy learning about other social justice issues as a non-binary person, as a disabled person. So yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Kendell?
I'm Kendell. I use she, her pronouns. Some local like things. I'm in an activist group called PDX Black Youth Movement, and we're a initiative in Portland. We organize protests, we help families, and we basically are just like here to help the Portland community out. I'm really into the Black Lives Matter movement. I've gone to multiple protests, I've spoke at multiple protests, I've organized multiple protests. I just really am trying to liberate the Black community economically, sovereignty, trying to make sure that we are stable so that we can, keep each other afloat in that way. So that's, especially in Portland, because we are, considered the center, so to speak, of some of these protests. I just, that's my calling.
Absolutely. It's so rad to have you both here. That's really everything. Kendell, tech support wants me to ask you to turn off your ceiling light if possible. Thank you so much. All right. Moving forward, I know you both are artists, you both do art, and you both do activism and have things you're really passionate about. What does your art look like for you? Is it a way of expressing yourself, a way of activism? Is it your business?
I can go first. My art is like a way for people to, you know, understand what I'm saying and like to try to communicate that in the best way possible. I think a really good way that art, you know, is just different from just like speaking to a crowd of people is you can like layer that into metaphors, double entendres, similes, synopsises. So you can really get that full grasp of what you're trying to say so people can think about it on another level instead of just on that base level of I'm trying to talk to you. My art is, you know, it is everything to me. It's a form of activism. It's what, you know, if I go to a protest and I choose to speak, I'll probably say one of my pieces. Like it is how I express myself to everyone to make sure my voice is heard.
Absolutely. Yeah. How about you, Rowyn?
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. I think just like as a musician and as someone who writes music and writes poetry, I think that oftentimes I find that art can speak volumes where, like Kendall said, maybe just trying to explain something to someone doesn't necessarily. And I think that it's kind of surprising how, like, if you sit down and you put a pen to paper or you start drawing something, you might find that it shows you this like different path that you weren't expecting. And I think in light of the events of 2020, like pandemic, social justice wise, I think art kind of gives us an opportunity to focus that energy internally because like self-care is important, and I think that art can play a big role in that as well.
Rad. Um, yeah, I know we talked about this a little bit already. This has been a lot in your guys' answers for the last question. But how does art relate to activism for you? And I know you both have talked about a lot about, or so far, about what that looks like for you personally, but also like how do you see art relate to activism in the world? What does that look like to you?
Kendall, do you want to go?
Sorry. I think art and activism, like what that looks like, well, it looks like a lot of things in a lot of different like places of social justice. So, you know, if that's in the LGBTQ plus community, if that's women's rights, if that's, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, and these different things, it looks like different in different situations. And also looks at what it's like outside of the country, you know? So, you know, making a painting of something instead of just saying it, you know, if you said something that could get you in a lot of trouble, but if you just paint it, people are still going to hear that message, but you're not going to necessarily feel the bad repercussions of that. But for in Portland specifically, I think people's art is a way for them to connect with people. It's another level of connection, of that familiarity, of that personal, level of, this is me showing my raw self, so therefore you can show your raw self to me. And it's really just making sure your voice is heard in the utmost of ways, creating a beautiful piece of anything, and being raw with yourself and with other people.
Yeah, I hear that. That's awesome. Like, yeah, connection. Connection as activism, and community care as activism. Yeah, and using art in activism to subvert the system. I love that, and I think that's really real.
I was actually, after I thought a bit on that question, I remembered I'm taking an art class right now, and right before we left for winter break, we were watching this documentary on Keith Haring and kind of his like art style and how his art became famous. And I know Kendall talked about art creating connection, and I think I definitely have seen that both like in my own life and just in the lives and careers of other artists, like, or at least in the case of Keith Haring, like he painted this mural of the Statue of Liberty because I think he was commemorating like this anniversary, and he brought out all these kids and he gave them a paintbrush or markers, and he said like, what does liberty mean to you, and what does the Statue of Liberty symbolize to you? And so I thought it was really interesting that he took the art like out of his own experience or creation and kind of passed on that torch to other people. So if it's creating conversation, if it's posting on social media, I think it can have like a ripple effect on people. And I think in Portland, we're fortunate enough to be at the center of a lot of activism, whether that's like protests over these past months or murals or different social justice initiatives. I think, like I said earlier, art can like speak volumes and reach a wider audience. So, yeah.
Rad. I especially, yeah, no, I love the act of like adult allies and mentors and like community elders passing down their wisdom, their art, and like their strategies for revolution, really, like to the youth, and the youth like carrying that torch. I think that's really amazing. Yeah, and that's something I heard a bit in what you were saying, Rowyn. All right. What is a dream you have for the future? This can be personal or for your community at large.
I'm a big speaker of economics and how that affects each community. So when we look in the past, we can see that, these certain groups have been held back so long. And then that economic, the economic distribution ended up being very disproportionate. So these communities are stuck with, what is, crumbs, so to speak, compared to these large, which other groups of people have massive amounts. So I'm a very big speaker on like economic redistribution. So that's, that's equity, that is supporting the Black community and making sure that these things that are so not equal, you know, like police brutality. We see this all the time. You know, a black man is 2.5 times as likely to be shot than a white man. Or, you know, we see this, like, you're more likely to get a job if you have a white sounding name. These things hold Black people back from economic, from having good economic livelihood, so to speak, for lack of a better word. So, and you see this in a lot of communities too. What women, we get paid, you know, depending on your race, you know, like 77 for a white woman cents to a dollar. A man makes 68 for a Black woman, 58 for somebody that has Mexican or Latinx, Hispanic heritage. These things hold back communities from, and economics is what makes the world go round. So if you're held back from that, then you can't exceed.
Yeah, I hear you. So, your dream is that some of these barriers be like broken down for your community.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to personal goals, I think like in part a lot of what this year has taught me is that even though you can't always predict the future and you can't always make certain like an outcome, you can use your voice and put your energy towards something that you're proud of. So if that's activism, if that's a personal hobby or whatever, I think that sometimes that energy can kind of come back around. And so I'd like to maybe work on like forging those connections with people. Like events like these are awesome. I've thought about like furthering my music as a hobby. I've had like a collection of songs that I really have like put a lot of heart and soul into, and I would love to like release them as an album. So who knows when that's gonna happen. But I think like community wise, man, it just seems like we're kind of the generation that could maybe bolster that kind of like positive systemic change. And that would be rad. I think like climate justice and like equity for disabled people, equity for trans people, equity for like as a white person, you know, I have this big amount of privilege that I realize like especially now is important to just take a step back and look at the big picture and see where my allyship can like benefit others and support other voices, support like I know like Kendell talked about just economic redistribution, putting your energy into the community and the community will give back to you. So I think like you kind of realize that wherever you put your heart and your energy and your hopes, then other people can benefit. And in turn, you can kind of start this like small revolution, if that makes sense. I think like it's hard sometimes to see how one person's actions can change the lives of others, but I think that like it It's true in a lot of ways.
Yeah, thank you, both of you.
I have one more thing before we end that question. Another thing is climate change is a really big thing. I'd rather not have my future stolen from me because the planet is dying. So that is a very, very big thing. Our plans for the future is, making sure our planet is really, really healthy.
Thank you. That is important. Yes, this has been so profound. Thank you both. Yeah, it's really important that we have a planet, to say the least. Yeah. All right. We've talked we started this off with talking about some projects or initiatives that you care about. And this year has been really hard, really, really rough. It's been filled with a lot of darkness, to say the least. But it's also been kind of a beacon of connection, ironically. Even with COVID, people have really fought to come together. What's something you did an action, an event you went to, or a piece of art you made that sticks out from this year?
Ooh, that's a hard question because, there's so many things that pop into my head at once. But I think my biggest accomplishment this year is really putting myself in the Portland Black Lives Matter movement. I will say that. And a lot of my art, I started getting into poetry a lot more this year, so to speak. But it's definitely being put myself into the Black Lives Matter movement, especially at my age, and really wanting to bridge the gap between what is adults leading protests and the youth speaking out, because the youth are our future. So putting yourself in those difficult situations where you're faced with do I want myself to have this this experience that usually people around my age have, or do I really want to liberate my community and do what I know is right? So I think putting myself, and I know a lot of other people put themselves in these situations, you're faced with a lot of hard decisions. So that is about that, and making sure everybody at the protest is safe, especially with COVID. And then on top of that, as soon as you get to your end location, are you speaking? There's just so many things to figure out. So having to work through that multiple times, time after time, and still being able to consider myself happy while doing it, and knowing that what I'm doing is making such a difference in so many people's lives is something that I feel like is an accomplishment to me, especially doing it with people that I actually care about, and making sure that my voice is being heard, as quiet or as loud as it is. So yeah, I think that's my biggest accomplishment. And I wrote a piece this year on privilege and how America uses it. So that when I wrote that, it shifted my perspective on so many different things. So I think that was a really big motivation, one piece of writing where I just wrote from a perspective that I don't think at that time was my own, and now is it's interesting to me, and being able to be raw with a lot of people when I'm speaking that. I think I'm gonna consider that an accomplishment.
Absolutely. It might have just been my tablet, but your sound may or may not have cut out for a small bit.
Yeah, it said my internet was unstable, but it should be more stable now.
Yeah, no, but I still think we got a lot of like the gist of that and a lot of what you said, and yeah, it was really great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think something I heard from like what you just said, Kendall, like being part of something bigger than yourself in a way. I think like personally this year has been hard for me just because like my own mental health, and because I think like forging those social connections with people is so important, and yet it can be so hard when like we're told to stay home for the benefit of like the larger society because of COVID, which is completely valid. And I think like on the one hand, like, you know, it can be hard having to stay home, and on the other hand, I think it can help you sort of point your like internal compass in a different direction. I've done like a fair amount of journaling also, and I think just like knowing that in whatever like context that you are able to like put a pen to paper or make your voice heard or help other people's voices be heard, I think like I would say the most impactful part of this year for me, like activism wise or creativity wise, I think that like, you know, being a part of a protest can be really just like I said, knowing that you're part of something bigger than yourself and that you can learn something new, or just like understand that while it might take a day or a month or a year for COVID to kind of become, and I hate to say like a part of normal life, because I think like there has been so much loss we've faced like as a society this year, but also something that I wrote was like you can gain things even as a result of loss, and you can realize that like there are other things that can, I want to say, like grow or change out of like, I think the metaphor I like to use is being a flower in the concrete. So yeah, I don't know. I think not that it's like super important, but the yucky weather right now is kind of putting a damper on my creative juices for sure. I don't know if that's true for anyone else.
Thank you, Rowyn. Yeah, no, I get that for sure.
Oh, Rowyn, Tupac wrote a poem called "The Rose That Grew from the Concrete," and it reminded me of what you said, like a flower that grew from the concrete. And it was basically just him writing about like his experiences and how he flowered from the concrete. So I found that really interesting. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'll have to go find it so I can read it.
So rad, so rad. Okay, let's see. Rowyn, you have been asked this question already, I know, and it's something that we as Youth Power PDX ask a lot. But I think it's been really interesting to hear how drastically different people's answers can be and how cool that is. So, what does intersectional youth power mean to you?
Okay, I swear every time I look at that question, I come up with something different. That's okay. I think that it can mean like a bunch of different things. It can mean uplifting marginalized communities. It can mean making your voice heard if the world, I think like a lot of times we can feel like the world is against us, or like the world is trying to erase like certain aspects of identity, whether that's like your gender identity or your race or just your sort of viewpoint on the world. I think it's happened throughout history, and it's something that like even at our age and at like as a generation we've had to sort of like bring those inequalities to light and realize that as youth we do hold a lot of power, like despite our like generational shortcomings. If it's fighting for a livable planet, if it's fighting for an equitable future for different marginalized communities, I think like we are the future, and we do have like the world in our hands, in that we can make sure that the people who come after us can be proud of their identities and not ashamed of them. So yeah.
Yeah, that's tight. No, for me, it's us youth people taking control of a narrative and this negative connotation and these narratives that America and the entire world has set place that are just so negative and that hold people back. You know, it's marginalized communities. That's taking that and realizing that that's like the worst outcome, and it's this outcome that we've played back over and over again as history repeated itself. It's slowly gotten better, but it's also slowly gotten worse because we were never able to learn from our history, so we repeated it time and time again. That's war, when a whole bunch of people were screaming peace. That's the civil rights movement, and now we have to do it again to get the same rights that we were fighting for 50 to 100 years ago. So I think that's youth taking that and realizing that our future is more important, and it needs to be better. We can't make the same mistakes again. That's youth knowing that we have the power to change that, and knowing that our parents and our parents, just because they didn't do it, that doesn't mean we can't. So we need to do it now. That's realizing that your age is a boundary, but it won't stop you from making sure that your friends, your family, your people that you love, yourself, have these rights that every human should be entitled to, that should be birthed with, which is just not the reality at the moment. So it's taking that power and knowing that it's yours and it's not anybody else's. And us as a collective, as the younger generation who will face the repercussions of our parents and our parents' parents, and having to fix that, and knowing that we're going to have to fix our children's, because that's just going to create a ripple effect, knowing that our power can change that, and that we need to change that, and we can't put it on our children. We can't put it on our children's children like our parents and our parents' parents did.
That's snap-worthy.
I have said it before, I will say it again. Profound. Yeah. Thank you both so much for your words. We are nearing the end of our panel. For y'all, is there anything else you wanted to share here today? Is there anything coming up that you're looking forward to, for instance?
I personally, I feel like I'm looking forward to, as cliche as it sounds, like the start of a new year, and I think a continuation of like the positive change that has happened this year amidst all of that like darkness. And I think that um as like sobering as it was to like sit through and still be sitting through a pandemic, and just like to like, because I'm so grateful to be here and to have like a roof to sleep under and like a supportive family who's healthy. And so I think I may be looking forward to um, having a different lens to look at the world through, just knowing that, like, as human beings, we've endured so much. And I think it's important that we kind of be gentle with ourselves and also keep this momentum going, this creativity, and these important conversations. I'd be curious to know, like, from either of you or from Kendall, how you like kind of foster your creativity, or how you have been staying like creative during this time, because I think it's always kind of enlightening for me to hear other people's perspectives on it.
Yeah, thank you, Rowan. I really loved everything you said. I would say for me, what I've been doing a lot this year, I found, and a lot recently, I think I've definitely taken a hit too with like the gloomy weather, the lack of sun. I take a lot of inspiration from other things, like from shows, uh, from other people's art or ideas. And I let myself get really excited about those things. And sometimes I make something from it. Yeah. And also in terms of the weather, something that I've been liking to think about lately in terms of like physical changes in the world. Tomorrow is the winter solstice. It's the darkest day of the year, but from there, it only goes up. It's only going to get lighter.
I didn't know tomorrow was going to be the winter solstice. That's really cool. I think as like much as I've been saying it, I take a lot of inspiration from certain experiences that I've been through. So that's looking back on my past and the past of America and the past of like people that I know, and understanding where we went wrong, and then writing about how we can fix it now. And then another thing is Black Indigenous sovereignty. I take a lot from that, which is, America is stolen land. So, and then we have stolen people on it. So a lot of it is stolen, and then it's erased from our history. So Black Indigenous sovereignty, which is Black people, which are been stolen.
Okay, yeah, sorry, Kendall. I think you went out again for a bit, but
I was like talking and then I realized it went out.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I think we lost you. Like, you were talking about like Black Indigenous sovereignty and the concept of like stolen land and also like stolen people.
Right. I kind of left off on that too. So it's like sovereignty within that. So that's what keeps me motivated. And then that's also like another thing that I wanted to say is like recognize that you're on stolen land and a lot of things around you are stolen and erased from history. And like making sure that you can be the best you that you can be and taking back your power. I think that's like what I want to, for me.
Yeah, I think something that kind of like struck a chord in me with what you said is like the concept of creating a future that you're proud of and that you want to be a part of, even though like throughout history we've faced different forms of oppression. I think that can kind of serve as like a beacon of hope when you see like a future full of maybe like negative effects of climate change, which was like not, or it was maybe our parents or our parents who didn't know better, or but rather than placing the blame on the fact that we weren't around to be mindful of that, just knowing that like as youth we do have a chance to change that and create a future that we're proud to live in and proud to pass on to our children.
Yeah, that's tight.
Thank you both so much. This has been amazing. This panel has like surpassed my wildest dreams. Having you both here has been an honor. Rowyn, I know you did a poetry performance for Speak Up, Sing Out yesterday. I watched it. It was awesome. I was blown away. And that's up on our YouTube. And then Kendell, I'm pretty sure you're going to be performing later this week for Speak Up, Sing Out, some poetry. Super excited. Is there any place to find y'all out in the world or your work or your art? Do you have like social media?
I have, let's see, my my only social media that I have is my Instagram, which is just Rowyn with Y O'Connor _. I don't really post a lot on there. I have a love-hate relationship with social media, to be honest. But I would be honored to just like even have an audience, and I think like knowing that events like this exist in the world is amazing, and just being able to meet other creative minds out there is awesome. Keep an eye out for a random album this year. But other than that, yeah, we'll see.
For sure. Thank you.
Two things actually. I have an Instagram. It's my name. It's Kendell Brown-Clay. I spell my name weird, so it's Kendell, not Kendal or ALL. And then my group, which is an activist group I'm in, also has an Instagram. It's PDX Black Youth Movement. I can't follow anyone back at the moment or anything because I deleted Instagram today as a boycott to certain sex workers not liking the new terms and agreements today. So it's completely deleted on my phone. So because I'm boycotting that as a way to stand with my with sex workers and things like that. So yeah.
Rad. Yeah. Thank you both so much. Once again, this has been amazing. Check out Rowyn's performance on our YouTube. Check out Kendell later in the week. Once again, this has been Speak Up, Sing Out. And this will, I think, finish up the afternoon segment, but come back in the evening for, I believe, Belize, who will be performing poetry. All right. Thank you all so much. This has been great.
Super cool to meet you both face to face, even if it was over Zoom. But yeah, appreciate hearing from you both for sure.
Yeah, you guys seem like really cool people. Thank you for having me. I'm really honored. It was a really nice time, you know, bouncing ideas off, learning new perspectives. It was super cool. Thank you.
Heck yeah. All right. Farewell.
Farewell.
Peace out.